The point is that it's sort of it's a wave in popular culture that has been building for a while, and now it's going from being, are you the ones who do have dairy-free ice cream, or are you the ones who don't have it? That's essentially what's happening now, because it's going to be everywhere in LA and starting in a couple weeks. So that kind of brings us into who I am. I'm the community manager, vice president of marketing, and general fixer for Mami's Gelato, because we're a small business and Steve knows how it is. None of us do one thing only.
You do everything.
You do a little bit of everything. And, a few years ago I was doing, carrying things to UPS, but thankfully we're beyond that point now. But Mami's Gelato, who we are, is a company that believes that dairy-free is a big part of the future of ice cream. And specifically today, I'm here to talk about our flagship product, which is called Froconet, which hopefully is obvious that it means frozen coconut. And we don't label it as ice cream or specifically on the label, but you can call it ice cream or dairy-free ice cream, vegan gelato, non-dairy frozen custard, which, by the way, we have shops that call it all those things around the country. But the point is that it is dairy-free ice cream is the product that you get from this. So essentially, today I'm actually introducing our new packaging. Previously, and the last video that I made with Steve, it was this way. You would use a larger bag and you'd have to weigh out the powder, and admittedly, it was a little cumbersome. But now we have these bags. All of our mixes come in these bags that yield exactly 2 gallons per bag. So essentially what we're going to do is take a 12-quart bucket like this one, which you can get online at a restaurant supply store, and a whisk here. And we're going to follow the instructions on this bag, which are pretty simple. Let's see. I'm going to need some scissors or a knife to open this bag.
I'll get that for you.
Thanks,
Be right
Steve.
back.
So the first step is I'm just going to fill up this bucket to the 1 gallon mark with warm water from the tap here. Make sure it gets nice and warm here.
Here you go.
Thanks. So, Steve, you mentioned Breyers and Haagen-Dazs and companies like that, and how people are looking to more artisanal options. And interestingly, I think somebody told Breyers and Haagen-Dazs, because now they've come out with their own dairy-free lines of ice cream in grocery stores. You'll notice in grocery stores they don't call it ice cream, because legally it has to have at least 10% butterfat to be called ice cream on the shelf. But usually in ice cream shops, you can get away with calling it whatever you want. The USDA isn't going to come and shut you down. Let's see here.
What I'm doing is getting ready to run the machine. I checked that I had lubricated last night the drive shaft. I'm going to put it all together, and then I'm going to run a sanitizer through it. And one little thing about the machine, it's 2 blades and they're spring loaded. I'll show you a typical dasher. That's from a 12-quart machine. And the springs, that's just to hold it. The springs push the blades out against the walls. So unlike our old machines where we have to sharpen the blades once a year, now we don't have to do anything for 5 or 6 years.
Dope.
Don't forget, if you have any questions, just chime in.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions so far? Sure.
Good.
Do you use anything other than coconut, like almond milk or some other form of non-dairy product?
Good question.
Nate, you have to repeat the question because I'm sorry, the microphones won't pick it up.
Thanks. So the question was, do we produce at Mami's Gelato mixes that are based on anything other than coconut, like soy or almond or cashew? The answer to that is we currently, while we have experimented and developed some bases using those different ingredients, we actually decided to focus exclusively on coconut to start out. And we're only a couple of years old, so we've kind of been ramping up. The reason we chose coconut, there are a couple different reasons. One is that coconut tends to be less expensive when all is said and done than almond or cashew, especially. Soy has a little bit of stigma, which, some of it is undeserved, but there is kind of this idea that, soy is less than these other options. And also, coconut really blends well with a wider variety of flavors than almond or cashew. Almond and cashew are really good with things like chocolate and sea salt caramel and flavors that are more on that sort of like savory end, I guess. But not as well with fruit flavors in particular, or even things like mint. Coconut has kind of more, I would almost call it a transparent profile where it can mesh. So for now, all of our mixes are coconut based. That might change in the future, but that's we decided to really push ahead with that. That being said, we also went with a powdered base, obviously, for a couple different reasons. One of them being it's easier to store, it's easier to ship. It's shelf stable. This has a shelf life of 1 year unopened. So those are all advantages. And then it's really easy to mix it up, as I'm going to show you here in a second. So I filled up this 12-quart bucket to the 4-quart mark here. We're going to end up with 2 gallons from this bag, like I mentioned. So I'm going to mix it with a gallon here. And I'm going to add some of the powder and start whisking it. This process is actually easier if you use a commercial immersion blender like the Big Sticks blender from Waring or a RoboCoupe or a Burr mixer, for instance. However, not everybody has, a $300 blender starting out. So I wanted to demonstrate that you can prepare the mix using just a whisk. Takes a little more elbow grease, but it's worth it. And of course, if it starts selling like gangbusters, you can always, the investment in a immersion blender is going to be relatively small. So I'm going to add the rest of this powder here. Now, because Froconet mix is it's a full fat mix. It's not a fat-free mix like, for example, if you've ever tried Dole Whip, for instance. That is a powdered mix that is fat-free, so it dissolves a little bit more easily. Because you've got the coconut fat in there, you have to emulsify it. So hot water will do that, or warm water helps with that, and then blending it is going to help. If you use an immersion blender, that'll help speed the process along. But the point is that once it's blended, that's what gives it its creamy mouthfeel and texture. That's more like ice cream.
Now, when you say fat, it's not fat and fattening like, say, a Hershey candy bar. It's a healthy fat.
Well, coconut has gotten a lot of good attention for having different kinds of fat than you'll find in like canola oil or butter, for that matter. It has these medium chain triglycerides, MCT fats, and those have different metabolic properties than other types of fat. That being said, if you eat enough of this, it is ice cream. So you wouldn't want to eat a gallon a day. It's a treat. All right, so I've got that pretty well blended up here. Now I'm going to set this whisk aside. You can see it's probably at about 6.5 quarts right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it up to the 8-quart line with some more water. Let's see. I'm not going to touch Jeff's bucket here.
So this is going to be the basis of our product. You're going to hear the term mix. Really bad term. It's actually a blend. So this is a blend of coconut and sugar. When we make ice cream, as I mentioned, milk, cream, sugar, skim milk. We should call it, a nice term would be a blend, but we use the word mix, which always sounds awful. It sounds like a powder. But this is the basis.
I like to say that, once you add the water, and blend it up, you have a dairy-free ice cream base. So I use those terms. The mix I use to refer to the powder itself, and then now we have a dairy-free ice cream base, which is what it is. It's a base that you can use for all of your dairy-free flavors. So I'm going to concentrate as I fill up to the 8-quart line here.
Now this machine is sanitized and ready to go. If we don't take the door off or reach in, it's going to stay sanitized or germ-free for as long as we run it. We could run 8 hours, batch after batch after batch, and never have to sanitize again.
All right, now with the dairy-free base, with the Froconet base here, for best results, you actually want to let it sit for a few minutes to let it fully hydrate, just to get the best consistency possible. So
we don't have a few minutes.
Well, I've made one right here.
Oh, okay. You're way ahead
I thought
of me.
ahead. So this
good.
one we can use for our first batch.
Excellent.
While we allow this one to fully hydrate and age. Which, ideally you would wait 15 minutes, but if we wait 10, it's going to be the same difference. It'll be fine. So I'm just giving it one last whisk here to just make sure everything's blended up. It looks pretty good now.
I am both hydrated and aged, and it hasn't done much good for me.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. All right. Like a fine wine. So this is good to go. I'm going to portion out 4 quarts. This is obviously going to be 2 gallons. That's too much for the CB350.
We'll take 4 quarts.
So I'll set that aside as well to age. Here's the hardest part. All right. Success.
I'll even take a shade under.
Oh yeah. I'll go down a little bit.
This is our CB350. This makes 6 to 7 quarts of product every time you run it. Yes. Oh, hi. Yes.
Hey, how long will that store after you mix it up? Do you need to use it like the same day?
No, you don't. So you can toss it in the refrigerator. You can use it. It depends on the exact temperature that you're holding it in your refrigerator, but I recommend using it within 5 days.
Okay.
You'll see some separation after a day or two, and you can just go ahead and whisk it back up, and it's fine.
So if you were to make the full bag, how much total water did you use? I know you started with 4 quarts of warm water, and then you added up to 8, but total, how much water?
Sure, and I'll repeat both of those questions. I'm sorry, I forgot to repeat them for the video. Just asking if A, you can store and refrigerate and store the mix, which yes, you can for up to 5 days. And secondly, how much total water are we adding to the mix, to the powder to make the Froconet base? And the answer to that, the technical answer is, if we're trying to make, let's say we're trying to make 1 gallon, you're going to add 2,730 milliliters of water. Now, that's kind of an odd number to remember, and also, but we send it out. If you want to know that, I can shoot you an email and say, hey, this is how much water you have to add to make exactly 3 gallons. But more importantly, especially when you're making flavors like, let's say you're using a fruit puree or frozen fruit or adding any kind of water content to the mix, you actually, instead of thinking in terms of water that you're adding, you want to think in terms of total yield. So let's say you add the powder, you do your first gallon, blend it all up, add the fruit puree, let's say you're adding like a quart. Then basically you blend that up and just fill that up to the 2-gallon line, and you know that you're getting that exact amount of water content that you should be getting. So you can do it either way, though. It's personal preference. Oh, yes?
Does adding less water makes a creamier product?
Does adding less water affect the product? Is that
Makes a creamier product.
Up to a point. So you can reduce the amount of water content by about 10% at the most before you start to kind of affect the product negatively. But yeah, up to that 10% reduction, it will create a slightly creamier, denser product. So unless there are any other questions, we can get started on the ube flavor. Are we doing the ube first?
Yes.
All right. So this one is already aged.
All right. Then I think I'll pour it right in here first. Now, the ube powder from the yam, which I said is very popular in the Philippines and Indonesia area, I got this on Amazon, so it's not hard to find. This is not something I've seen on the East Coast, but it's quite popular in Southern California as a flavor. So I also found not only the ube powder, and again, I've never tasted it. I also got from McCormick. You think they could have given me a bigger bottle? That's McCormick. You know McCormick spices. And that's not going to be found in the supermarket, at least not around here in Brooksville, Florida. We're all about ribs and hamburgers and that. But you can get that from more McCormick.
Is that a flavor or a color?
It's an extract.
Oh, okay.
So, no, you don't need the color because that's bright purple.
Yeah. And just as you mentioned with the popularity in Southern California, you know, it's not just ube, it's several or kind of a whole variety of Asian flavors that are, you know, steadily being imported and becoming the next big thing in LA, and then slowly kind of makes its way around the country, like matcha. Matcha is a Japanese green tea powder that's we actually now produce a matcha version of the mix.
Wow, that much demand for it.
Yeah, especially in just certain pockets in LA, in an increasingly like New York area, it's more popular. But yeah, you've got black sesame that's becoming popular. So it's always, you know, there are always more flavors to experiment with. It's kind of the fun thing about this business.
And it's not going to replace, excuse me, it's not going to replace vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. But it's fun to have these different flavors and know about them, so you can run them, you know, put them in as a flavor of the week to attract some attention. There's Salt and Straw does a lot of this. You mentioned the other place, my customer.
Afters ice cream.
Yep. Molly Moon's. A lot of these places on the West Coast will experiment with different things. On the East Coast, we experiment with how many more different kinds of cookies can we put in ice cream.
Always a good experiment.
So I'm going to see if I can bring that up to the camera. Can you see that? Jack?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you got that?
Yes, sir.
So that's a very interesting flavor. You know what? I think I'm going to taste it before we get going to see what if we might need more.
It's looking pretty purple.
Well, it should be purple.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
So let's see. That's a nice flavor. I think I'm going to add some more. Now, when you're making ice cream, I run into a lot of people who want to buy one of the small machines, which I'm happy to sell you over here, and experiment for a year or two. Well, I'm old school. I believe you set a goal and you get into business. You don't have to experiment for a number of years. Ice cream making, to me, is mathematical. Just like if you told me I had to bake a birthday cake. Well, what is a birthday cake? It's flour, sugar, water, and flavor. And if you pick up a cookbook, it's going to tell you how much flour to how much sugar to how much water and approximately how much flavor you should use. And you'll end up with a great birthday cake. That's your first batch. Your second batch, you're going to adjust it. You're going to taste this today, and Jeff's going to say you didn't put enough flavor in, and so maybe we'll increase the amount of flavor. And then you'll come up with a third batch, which will be your own personal flavor, your own personal taste, and there you go. You've made 3 batches to come up with a new flavor. I really don't think that it's any harder than that. Yes?
Yeah, let me just check. So what we have in there here, can you just go with us to what we have in this?
This is the dairy-free coconut from Mami's. It's got a packet and a half of the ube. How many ounces is this? Can you see?
Yeah, it's 4.
So we put in about 6 ounces of ube and about a teaspoon of the McCormick extract.
And again, we're using essentially half the bag. We're using the half of the batch of the Froconet to make 1 gallon.
Are you going to add the vanilla?
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to put it in now. I am notorious for leaving things out.
You could probably get away without using vanilla, but it's
You
good.
think?
I mean,
Well, I didn't. First, we had to find it.
well, that's.
It was here.
Be a
Jeff,
challenge.
did you? Right in front of me.
I'm not.
Look at that, right there. What would we do without Jeff? All right, so I'm going to put just about an ounce of vanilla in.
Can't hurt.
No. Vanilla enhances everything. There we go. Okay.
Wow, I'm kind of on the edge of my seat. I've never tried ube ice cream in general, and I've never tried it with our mix. So this is an experiment.
If I want that coconut flakes, what would I do?
You would do it right now, and you would buy the sweetened coconut from the supermarket. And Jeff and I like to find things to disagree on, but we'll agree on this one. I say cane sugar is cane sugar, and he says buy the best. When it comes to coconut flakes, I've bought the store brand, and it is so chewy and awful. Buy the best there is. It's sweetened coconut flakes, and you could definitely put that in if you want. But it's really not necessary because there's such a nice flavor coming from the blend. It's a nice background taste. Let me get this going. I'm going to run this at super premium, which I can explain. That's turning. Turn on the refrigeration.
How many RPMs is that?
About 165, but it only applies to my machine.
Right.
You can't set. There is no other machine on the market that you can set. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't, and even if you could, it wouldn't apply.
Well, believe it or not, most of the people who are using our mix are also using your machines, so it translates pretty well, I think.
And at the super premium level.
Yeah. I've heard some people doing it as high as 200 RPM, but that's kind of pushing it, I think. The 165 is going to give it.
Yeah. The faster you spin it, the more air it's going to have. Air is not a bad thing. We make everything. We started companies from Breyers and Hershey's to Bluebell to Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry. Haagen-Dazs is very dense, and they have a very specific market. You buy a pint, and you take a taste of it when you bring it home. Another small portion for dinner, a little bit at 11 o'clock at night, another spoonful. You pick at Haagen-Dazs. It's so heavy that if you sat down and ate the whole pint, you're going to feel really full. Jeff's ice cream, when you go to Mystic Ice Cream and Ices, is a full flavored ice cream. It's a large portion, and it leaves you feeling refreshed, not laden down like Haagen-Dazs, but leaves you feeling fresh, so you say, gee, I think I'll buy another one. And that's what we're looking for. People get too hung up on fat content, on overrun. Nobody ever walked out of a store and said, oh, gee, I can't wait to go back to Jeff's place because he has the best fat content I ever ate. You don't make comments like that. You say, wow, his mint chip was really minty, and the chocolate chips were high quality. They weren't chalky like the store brand. He's buying Ghirardelli. And that's what makes a great ice cream. People eat flavor. Everything else is secondary. Another way to look at air is you have a birthday cake and a pound cake. They're both great cakes. Pound cake's very heavy, very dense. Birthday cake's very light. Ask yourself, which would you rather have a second piece of after dessert? Birthday cake or pound cake? And I know the answer. It's birthday cake. It's full, it's flavorful, it's refreshing, and it leaves you wanting more. Yes, sir. You have to speak up.
Yeah. You're putting a package of powder with the yam. In addition, take the extract. Any particular reason why you put both?
Any reason I didn't do what? The question was, why did I use both ube, yam, and the extract? And the reason is I know that extract, I don't know how strong the yam flavor is. I know that when I eat a regular yam at Thanksgiving and don't like them, it's a bland flavor. Maybe that's why I don't like it. We all love a baked potato because it's smeared with a ton of butter and maybe some bacon and other good stuff. So I wanted to play safe and add a little extract. I've not seen any recipe where you use both. So we're going to find out. I go by the Jeff Markhouse school of ice cream. Too much is never enough. So if you think you've got too much flavor in there, you don't have enough flavor in there. People eat flavor. Yes, sir.
By taking back to mass coconut
I'm not trying to mask the coconut flavor at all. The coconut flavor will always be a background. And in fact, what I have found is Nate and I have made coffee, Bavarian chocolate, we've made strawberry, we made a product called Hawaii. We've done a lot of flavors, and close your ears. The only one that doesn't work for me with the coconut base is vanilla, because the vanilla extract standalone and the coconut are fighting for world dominance, and neither one wins out. But everything else, your flavor is so predominant that the coconut background is just that. It's a background flavor, and it's really, really nice. And you ask about different ways of doing it. So there's soy, there's cashew, there's a lot of different things, and that's why they never took off on the market, because they just didn't hit the mark. They were bland. There was a product out, I don't know if it's still around, called Soylicious. Beautiful container. You know, it had dark black colors with streaks of different variations of blue on it coming up. It was gorgeous. And in my opinion, don't sue me, that product was horrible. And so I don't know where it is today, but this product is absolutely delicious. One other thing about this product you need to know is the coconut base and the processing costs more than dairy. We have, you know, millions of cows here in the United States. We don't have millions of coconut palm trees. So the cost is higher for the powdered product, and that's fine. It's a specific standalone product. It's like if you're selling ice cream and you want to sell milkshakes, you may get $5 for your ice cream, but you can get $7 for the milkshake, because they're two uniquely different products. Normally, I don't like two price structures. It's confusing, but I would have no problem with having my dairy ice creams at say $4 a scoop, and my dairy-free at $5.25. I have not done the math. I don't know if that works, but I know it's going to work very well. It's going to be very profitable. But it does cost more, so I wouldn't just factor it in with the other ice creams. And it's a different market.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I have done the math, luckily, and by and large, you're going to end up making more profit per scoop from the dairy-free. Because depending on the dairy mix you use, I mean, dairy mixes run different rates all around the country and different fat levels, but you know, at most you're looking at spending an extra 25 to 50 cents per scoop using the coconut mix. So if you charge $1 extra, you're making at least 50, you know, maybe 75 cents more per scoop. So that's, like you said, it's going to cost more to start with, but then once you factor in, you know, the premium that people are willing to pay, it works out for sure.
Sometimes I have to get my customers to go kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I have a lot of old-fashioned ice cream parlors that have been around for 60, 70 years, making a ton of money. And when they call up to order a part once every 10 years, I tell them about this product, and they say, what do I need that for? I've got all these customers. I drive a nice car. I've got a lot of money. I've been very successful all these years. You need it because there are 85 million people, potential people, who are not walking through your door because you don't have dairy-free. You know, just add it for a while. This is, I'm convinced, because I've been studying trends and fads for 45 years. This is a trend. It will never, like I said, replace ice cream, but it's in addition to. Just give me 2 slots in your dipping cabinet and you watch how the lines go. It's amazing. Yes? Yes, speak up.
Yeah, let's suppose we're changing the flavor from Cuba, yam, to strawberry. How do you determine how much of the strawberry flavor?
Okay,
Sure.
The question was, what if we switch from yam to strawberry? Well, first off, which one's darker, the strawberry or the yam? The yam is, so I should have made the strawberry first and then make the yam. There'll be so little strawberry left in the machine that I can go right over it with the ube and you're never going to notice it. So plan your production down that way. And I have specific amounts that I put in depending on the machine. My general rules of thumb: if it's a 24-quart machine and it was strawberries, I'd put in 2 quarts of strawberries. 10-quart machine, I put in 1 quart of strawberries. 6-quart machine, I put in half a quart of strawberries. And then some since I now work with Jeff, I put in more flavor. So these are things to experiment. But you want to say something about it?
Oh yeah. I was also just going to mention that we have starting point recipes for fruit flavors, including strawberry, that we send out, to all of our customers. So there's a general formula you can use with fruit flavors. Kind of what Steve mentioned, a quart for this amount or half quart for that amount. And honestly, it also depends on where you're getting your strawberries from, what kind of flavoring you're adding. We recommend a company called Green Mountain Flavors that makes really good natural flavor concentrates, and they have a variety of fruit flavors available, like mango, strawberry, blueberry, etc. But you can use anything you can add to a dairy ice cream. You can add to the Frocohnut mix and make dairy-free ice cream. So,
yes. A little more. Okay. I may have to move you forward so I can hear. We're going to have 100 questions. How much what? A 10-quart machine is going to use approximately 1 quart of strawberries.
And would you add a flavor extract or concentrate to that as well?
Oh, good question. Well, you're on a mic. I don't have to repeat it, do I? Certain flavors are just incredibly weak. Cantaloupes, honeydew melons, watermelon. These drive executive chefs crazy because they're so rare. I mean, they're so thin. Like that? Okay, we'll get back to that.
Well, you go a little.
Going to turn off the refrigeration and watch how fast this comes out.
Oh, it looks good.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's a nice color right there. So if it tastes as good as it looks. Right on time.
Yep. If you've got a weak flavor, like honeydew melon, I like to use honeydew melons, but I also bolster the flavor with an extract. And you mentioned Green Mountain Flavors, which is not in Vermont. It's in Oswego, Illinois, and the president is a gentleman named Stan Sitton. And it's at my website. And they make all natural flavors. I tell this story over and over again, but basically he sent me some red dye. And I said, I'm not using red dye 40 chemical in my ice cream. He said, no, it's not a chemical. It's from beets. Beets are the reddest thing in nature. And so he has made a red dye from beets. That's pretty neat. All right, so now we're going to find out if this works as a flavor.
This is definitely a moment of truth right now. This
Yes.
is a world premiere, actually.
This is a
First
world.
batch.
This is a world premiere.
Ube and Frocohnut.
Okay, so we're gonna come over here. If we can move some of this stuff down.
Yeah.
And whoops. All right, I'll be the first guinea pig.
You can do this.
Dish it up. I think I want to get one taste first, just so I know what I'm getting into.
I can't decide. I really can't. Uh-oh. So you're the test market. Come on up. It's free.
Wow, that is an exotic flavor.
You mind?